Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the CEN seminar series for another very exciting talk. So today we have a very special guest, which is Melanie Maximino-Pinheiro. So Melanie, as we were talking about just before you all arrived, played a very vital role in helping to organize our joint conference in Paris last year at Universite Cite. So she is brilliant, and she has very kindly agreed to come and give us this wonderful talk about her PhD today. So I will just give a little introduction. So Melanie is currently a third-year PhD student at the Psychology of Child Development and Education Lab at Université Paris-Cité. She is working under the supervision of Professors Grégoire Borst and Carlo Barone. The two main objectives of her PhD thesis are firstly to explore the relationships between metacognition, academic achievement, and socioeconomic status in young pupils, and secondly, to evaluate the effects of different interventions targeting children, teachers, and parents, and aiming to improve pupils' metacognition. She's also an affiliated member for the Laboratory for Interdisciplinary Evaluation of Public Policies, LEAP. I love that acronym. At the Paris Institute of Political Sciences, where she collaborates with sociologists and economists in the field of educational policies, looking to reduce educational inequality. So this is a fantastic topic, very, very on trend at the moment for things that we're interested in. So over to you, Melanie.
Thank you, Astrid, for this nice introduction, for the invitation also, and thank you everyone for coming. So today I'm really happy to present you my PhD project. Actually, more than results, I will present you a series of ongoing projects that we are currently conducted at LaPsyDE in Paris. As I mentioned it, because actually I still have many data to analyze, but I will be super happy to have any of your thoughts about this project. Feedbacks are really welcomed, and maybe to discuss in which ways it can connect also with your work. So my PhD project is dealing with seek to determine if we can promote metacognition in young children and if it can constitute a lever to reduce educational inequalities in young children. So let's start with a quick definition of metacognition, which is frequently associated with the expressions cognition about cognition, thinking about thinking, or learning to learn. And in the literature, we used to distinguish three main subcomponents, which are metacognitive knowledge, metacognitive skills, and metacognitive experiences involving reflexivity about one's own cognitive processes. So, for example, metacognitive knowledge refers to the knowledge that we can have about people, so the cognition in general, but also knowledge about individuals. So, for example, to know our own strengths and weaknesses as a learner. It also refers to the knowledge of the different characteristics of the tasks and the strategies. So, for example, to know that two different tasks can require different cognitive resources, or to know that a strategy can be more relevant in a given context than in another one. Metacognitive skills are usually divided into planning skills, monitoring and control, and evaluation skills. So planning involves goal setting, the selection of the most appropriate strategy before completing a task. Then monitoring and control skills refer to the skills occurring during the completion of the task to monitor if everything is going as planned, to self-reflect on what was previously planned, to correct the strategy previously planned, for example. And then the evaluation phase in which students can evaluate the quality of their work, the quality of the procedure that they followed, the quality of the strategies that they used, and reflect on how to improve next time, for example. So metacognitive knowledge refer more to the declarative aspect of metacognitions, while metacognitive skills is more linked to the procedural aspects of metacognition. And lastly, we distinguish metacognitive experiences more related to emotional aspects of metacognition and including metacognitive feelings and judgments, such as the judgment of familiarity in front of a task, the judgment of the ease of the task or the difficulty of the task. Actually, in the rest of my presentation, I will mainly focus on metacognitive knowledge and metacognitive skills, because this is the two components that I'm working on in my project. This is definitely one of the limitations of this project, and we need further studies working more on metacognitive experiences applied to education. Metacognition is also frequently associated with self-regulated learning, which is a broader theoretical framework, including motivational as well as cognitive and metacognitive components. So Zimmerman, who is a researcher mainly working on self-regulated learning, wrote that in general, students can be described as self-regulated to the degree that they are metacognitively, motivationally, and behaviorally active participants in their own learning process. And these learners are proactive in their effort to learn because they are aware of their strengths and limitations. So it's related to what I just mentioned about the metacognitive knowledge related to people. And because they are guided by personally set goals and task-related strategies, these learners monitor their behavior in terms of their goals and self-reflect, one more time, this idea of reflexivity, on their increasing effectiveness. This enhances their self-satisfaction and motivation to continue to improve their methods of learning. So basically, ideal students. Just a few words to say that I chose to present you these models, but there are actually many debates in the literature regarding this definition and the conceptualization of metacognition and self-regulated learning. I chose to present you this model because I have the feeling that they are pretty consensual in the literature, and also because there are the models that I used to design the projects and the intervention that I will present later in this talk. But keep in mind that we still need further work, theoretical work, to clarify the conceptualization and the definition of metacognition and self-regulated learning, and that it's still an open question. Regarding the relations between metacognition and academic achievement, it's important to note that obviously metacognition is of major interest in education because it's closely related to academic achievement. And just to illustrate that, I chose to mention this meta-analysis from Otani and Isasaka, gathering the best evidence on the correlational relation between metacognition and academic achievement, and you can see the number of studies and participants included in those analyses. And we can also mention this meta-analysis conducted by De Boer and colleagues on interventional data. But the large majority of these studies has been conducted with primary school students. And when I say primary school students, I actually refer to students from 8 years old, and also secondary school students and college students. And for example, if we look at the meta-analysis conducted by Otani and Isasaka, you can see the huge difference in terms of the number of studies and participants included in this analysis between adults and secondary school students, for example, and children. But there are emergent works with this population, and I wanted to quote the work of Jacob and colleagues, which is, to my knowledge, one of the only team based in Germany working on the promotion of self-regulated learning and metacognition in preschoolers. Regarding the relations between metacognition and socioeconomic status, there are surprisingly rare studies on this specific question, and regardless of participants' age, actually, This is quite surprising considering the large amount of data that we have in the educational literature on metacognition. And it's also a bit surprising when comparing to other cognitive abilities also frequently associated to metacognition. And I think, for example, of executive functions that has already been studied with this perspective of educational inequalities. But there are some data on primary and secondary school students suggesting that metacognition could constitute a lever to reduce educational inequalities. And I highlighted here this result from the meta-analysis conducted by Deborah and colleagues, showing that low SES students seem to benefit the most at delayed post-test from the metacognition intervention. It's pretty interesting because they found this result at delayed post-test and not at immediate post-test. At immediate post-test, the results indicate that on average, all children benefit from metacognition interventions independently of their social characteristics. But at delayed post-test, it seems to be more beneficial for low SES students. And the main explanatory hypothesis is that maybe children from low SES need more time to implement into their daily learning routines the advice and the tools recommended in the interventions. But to our knowledge, there is no study with young children on this question, while we know that educational inequalities are witnessed from the earliest age. And I chose to present these data from Larson and colleagues, showing a socioeconomic gradient in reading and math skills at kindergarten entry. And also educational inequalities is one of the biggest challenges that education systems has to face and has to tackle. So really related to this, I just wanted to raise your attention about two information regarding the French education system, because this is the country in which I am conducting my project. First, even if France is actually a pretty performance educational system, France is also one of the OECD countries in which socioeconomic status explain the most students' performance. And the reduction of educational inequalities is one of the main challenge that the French education system has to tackle, maybe the main one. And the other thing is, which is a particularity of the French education system, is that pre-primary education is compulsory from the age 3. So just for you to understand in which context I can run the different project that I will present later in this talk, because we have a formal educational school setting welcoming children of that age. So it's a fantastic playground and research ground for my studies. And just keep in mind that so the pre-primary school is an integral part of the national education system in France, and that pre-primary school teachers are trained as primary school teachers. So yeah, this is just a bit of context to understand the intervention and the experiments that I will present later. So the main objectives of my PhD project is to answer 4 main questions. The first one is exploring the relations existing between metacognition, academic achievement, and SES, particularly in young children. So when I speak about young children, I will refer to pre-primary school students, first grade and first graders and second graders, by opposition to the children from eight that have been studied a lot already in the metacognitive literature. The second question is to know if metacognition be promoted in this population, because if it's now pretty consensual with older children. This is not the case with younger ones. Can it benefit academic achievements? So concretely, can we see transfer effects? And can it contribute to reduce educational inequalities? So I will present one of our exploratory study, and then the 3 interventional project that we launched after this one. So for the first study trying to explore precisely these relations between metacognition, SES, and academic achievement, we recruited 90 kindergarteners, so basically children in the 3rd and last year of our pre-primary school system and the year just before the 1st grade. In every project, it was super important for us to be able to recruit children from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, which can be a bit challenging in research, but we managed to recruit schools in priority education areas and also non-labeled schools, but with a certain social mix. We naturally measured socioeconomic status through parental educational level and occupational status. We also assessed children's metacognition, metacognitive knowledge, and metacognitive skills. To assess cognitive knowledge, we used the MCKI, designed by Marilis and colleagues, and which is one of the only tool existing in the literature to evaluate young children's metacognitive knowledge. So basically, children have first to complete a construction game, and then the experimenter asks several questions about this construction game, such as, do you think you did a good job, an okay job, or not so good job? Did you think anything was hard? Would this puzzle be hard for another kid your age? And actually, more than the first question, what is super important is the second part of the question, when we ask the children why not, to try to have access to the knowledge and what they know about their learning processes and what they know about the strategies that they are using when completing this type of task. For metacognitive skills, we used this teacher questionnaire designed by Whitebeard and colleagues, and I highlighted some of the items specifically related to metacognition. So for example, this one, the child is aware of own strengths and weaknesses. So one more time, referring to this metacognitive knowledge about people that I mentioned previously in the introduction. The child can speak about future planned activities for planning. The child can monitor progress for monitoring, and for evaluation, we have this item. The children can speak about how they have done something or what they have learned. Then for the academic acquisitions, we assessed children's language and math abilities with classical standardized subtests focusing on vocabulary, phonological awareness, grammar, counting, numeration, and arithmetical operations. So there are the results that we get. We found that SES already predicted children's metacognitive development as early as the age of 5, that children's metacognition also predicted the level of academic acquisitions in language and math. But more importantly, we found that metacognition constituted a significant mediator of the relation between SES and language and SES and math. We found a partial mediation for the relation with language and a total mediation for the relation with math, but these results have to be taken has to be taken with caution, considering the small size of the sample. But this preliminary results led us to think that metacognition could constitute a lever to reduce educational inequalities, and that it could be pretty interesting to try to target these abilities in order to work on education, on the reduction of educational inequalities, and trying to work on this link, these relations between SES and academic acquisitions. So considering all the literature that I mentioned and these preliminary results, we launched 3 interventional projects. The first one targeting children through a direct in-class intervention. The second one targeting parents through a text message and video intervention. And the last one targeting teachers through a professional training. So I will go through these 3 projects. Concerning the first one, targeting children, we recruited 350 kindergarteners. Half of the sample joined the experimental group, and the other half joined the control group. We ran a classical pre-post test design. We naturally measured SES, metacognition, language, and math at the beginning of the year before the intervention, then just after, and we also ran a delayed post test at the end of the academic year, because we were particularly interested in exploring the potential different effects of the intervention between the immediate post-test and the delayed post-test, also regarding the results that were found in the literature with older children. And we also hope that we'll be able to access to administrative data. We are still waiting for them now. But in the French education system, every child is assessed at the beginning of the year. Teachers has to administer a national and standardized assessment in French and math, and we hope that we will be able to access this data to try to follow this cohort, and maybe exploring in which ways metacognition in kindergarten can predict later academic acquisitions, for example. Regarding the intervention, so as I said, it was a direct classroom intervention, including a 1-hour session per week for 7 weeks. The control group was a passive one, following the classical curriculum. This is one of the limitations of this project, and actually of the 3 projects that I will present today. And I hope that one day we will be able to include active control group to reinforce the evidence and the data collected in this type of project. But regarding specifically this intervention, we focused on metacognitive knowledge illustrated by the brain, because actually we focused on metacognitive knowledge on the general cognition, how the brain works, how the learning work, with the difficulty to explain that to children age 5. We also focused on metacognitive skills illustrated by this toolbox in which children could find planning, monitoring, control, and evaluation strategies. And finally, we also focused on metacognitive awareness, metacognitive reflexivity, and metacognitive questionings illustrated by this question mark. And to give them metacognitive questions that they can use and ask themselves to guide them during the activity that they need to carry out. You have here, you can see here the detail of the sequence with the three first sessions dedicating to metacognitive knowledge, then 3 sessions dedicated to metacognitive skills. So you can see here the planning, monitoring, and evaluation, and then a final session to conclude the sequence. You can see here also some of the materials that we used in the classroom, with displays about the brain, the question marks, the different pictograms that we use to illustrate the different metacognitive skills. You can see the children and I in a classroom with doing an activity about neurons and neural plasticity. And here you have the picture, the drawings, children's drawings, because at the end of the sequence, I asked them to draw what they preferred during the sequence. So you have many brains, neurons. Also, you have the words avant, pendant, après, meaning before, after, before, during, and after, because this is the terms that we use to illustrate the planning, monitoring, and evaluation phase. You have also many question marks, and Charlie the lion, who was the mascot of the project. And just to finish with this project, actually in the literature, one of the remaining question is about the metacognition, the assessment of metacognitive ability, even more with children and even more with young children. And as you saw in the first study that I presented, obviously the interview relies a lot on language abilities, and even if it's less the case for metacognitive skills because it refers more to procedural aspects, we can imagine that teacher can be also biased by children's language level, rating as more metacognitive children who just express more their processes and their strategies. So to try to answer this question and to contribute to this field, we try to adapt a task originally designed for children aged between 8 and 12. And I'm currently conducting this project with Margot Remo, who is a PhD student at LaPsyDE and at the Statistics Department of the French Ministry of Education, and who is maybe in the audience today. So the task that we tried to adapt is the zoo task designed by Patel and colleagues. And basically in this task, children have to find the shortest path to feed all the animals of the list. There are 3 trials of increasing difficulty. The first one with 4 animals to feed, then 6, and then 8 animals to feed. And we tried to adapt this task to kindergarteners, making it more accessible and easier for them. And basically, during the completion of the task, the experimenter needs to rate the metacognitive strategies related to planning, monitoring, control, and evaluation that children use to complete the task. And which is particularly interesting here is that we can rate both verbal but also non-verbal behaviors. Now let's move on to the project targeting parents. This is a big project led by an interdisciplinary research team composed of economists, sociologists, and psychologists with Élise Vuillery, Nina Guillon, Carlo Baron, Grégoire Borst, and I. This is an RCT in which we managed to recruit more than 1,000 children in first grade this time. One more time, it's a classical pre-post test design, but in this project, we were particularly interested in self-regulated learning. So not only metacognition, but also in including motivational and behavioral self-control measures. And we also conducted phone interviews to assess parental practices and school involvement. And for this project, for the academic acquisitions part, we rely exclusively on the administrative data from the ministry, so the national assessment in French and math. You can see here the detail of the content of the program with 2 first videos. Sorry, I didn't speak about the intervention, but it was an intervention delivered through a text message, a video intervention, and basically parents from the experimental group received 1 short video per week through text message for 20 weeks. Here you can see the detail of details of the program with two first video to introduce the program, then a set of videos dedicated to motivation, another set of videos dealing with behavioral and cognitive aspects, and then the last one on metacognition. So the three main components of self-regulated learning. Here you can see one example of this video. So every video started by a quick introduction of the main concept, the main skill of the video. Then we had a scientific minute represented by one of the researchers of the team, in which we explained the component and the skill in question. So defining them, explaining in which way this component was crucial for academic success, and the crucial role of parents in developing this component and these skills. Then this part was followed by a toolbox in which we gave a very simple and very concrete advice to parents on how to improve and train these skills on a daily basis through little talks, speeches, little games, little activities that they can do with their child. Also daily activities such as cooking, and how to implement little ingredients trying to foster and to train the ability in question or the skill in question. And then we finished every video with a quick mention of the next episode. For this project, we were obviously particularly aware of the accessibility of the videos, because our goal was to target families from diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, but mainly families from disadvantaged background who can be far from the school culture, who can have difficulties in mastering French language. So it was super important for us to create short videos, about 5 minutes, to use as many as possible plain language, to create dynamic videos with many illustrations. We also translated these videos into 7 foreign languages. And these 7 foreign languages actually cover, I would say, 88% of the languages of the spoken in the families. The videos were sent directly through a text messages, through a link. They were hosted on a widely known platform, so-called YouTube. And we also sent several reminders during the week. And even with all these cautions, this is the take-up that we got. So here you can see the number of parents who clicked at least on N videos. So remember that the experimental group was composed of 650 parents. So you can see that the large majority of the parents clicked on at least one video, but only 11 followed the entire program. And if we target 50% of take-up, you can see that it's around here, and the watching of only 4 videos. I say only, but actually when comparing to the results of the literature and already existing intervention of this type, this is quite a good take-up. And we can't imagine to have better results than this. As I said in introduction, I still have many data to analyze, so I don't have much results to present you today, actually, but just for the preliminary results that we found regarding the relations between metacognition and SES, you can see that we found a strong socioeconomic gradients of children's metacognitive skills as early as 6 years old actually is not really surprising when comparing to other cognitive abilities, or when comparing to the results that we have regarding the academic success. But we don't have so many data actually in the literature, and with this sample size, just describing the situation and like the effect size of socioeconomic disparities in the development of children's metacognition. And with this project, we were also particularly interested in exploring the potential explanatory mechanism between SES and children's metacognition. And we were able to do that by the investigation of parental practices. And for now, the preliminary results that we have show that the number of activities that parents do with their child, so for example, the number of activities such as playing, cooking together, doing puzzles or stuff like that, seems to be a significant mediator of the relation between SES and children's metacognition, as well as how frequently they discuss about the school life with their child. And to finish with the third and the last project targeting teachers. So this is a project that I'm currently conducting this year, and we are finishing the post-test data collection this month. I'm working on it with Lise Brunet, who is also a PhD student at LaPsyDE. I don't know if she is here today. She's also a member of the Union School Together Association. And for this project, we recruited 44 teachers, 22 by group, which resulted in a sample of 503 preschoolers in MS and GS. Sorry, I didn't translate this, but basically MS is the second year of our pre-primary school system, and GS is the third and last year of our pre-primary school system. So basically they were age between 4 and 5 and 5 and 6. It was also for us an opportunity to explore children's metacognitive development with even younger children by adding this time children in MS. One more time, classical pre-post-test design, but this time we were particularly interested in assessing teachers' practices related to metacognition, and for that we conducted standardized observation in classrooms. We also asked teachers to fill in a self-report questionnaire on their own practices. The idea behind that is that we were particularly interested in maybe exploring the mismatch or the match between teachers' perceptions on their own teaching practices and what we really observed and saw in the classroom. For the intervention, it was an 18-hour training focusing exclusively on metacognition in education, particularly with pre-primary school students, and in this perspective of a reduction of reducing educational inequalities. Here you can see the details of the program. So the training started with an introductory lecture to define metacognition, to speak about the development of metacognition in children, and to describe the links with learning, academic achievement, and educational inequalities, because actually there was information that teachers didn't have about metacognition, and actually they were pretty surprised to see how much data was existing in the literature and how few they knew about this topic as practitioners. We then dedicated a moment to needs assessment for teachers to both assess their pupils' needs and their own needs as teachers. we then spent one entire day on the presentation of existing tools and resources to improve their teaching practices and try to improve children's metacognitive knowledge and skills. Then we led them 2 hours to organize their individual planning over the course of the year. So just a moment to reflect on which tool they will use in which activity at what time during the year. Then we let them practice autonomously in their class. We organized a first feedback meeting. We also conducted one observation at the middle of the year to observe teachers, to give them immediate feedback and to help them with the implementation, because it was pretty challenging for them actually. And then we organized a second and final feedback meeting to conclude the training. And just before concluding, I chose to present some of the materials that the teachers created, adapted, and used in their classrooms. So you can see displays about the brain, metacognitive questions here. One more time, the words avant, pendant, après for before, during, and after, representing the planning, monitoring, and evaluation phase, and some pictograms that they also used to foster, to improve the use of metacognitive skills. So to conclude, the results of this intervention are still to come, so stay tuned. I know that it can be a bit frustrating, actually more for me than for you. But these are definitely promising avenues for research, education, and public policies. We talked a bit about the question of the assessment and the challenges to assess metacognition in general, and even more with younger children, to explore more in details the relation between SES and metacognition and the explanatory mechanism. Also to look more into the parental practices, the teaching practices, trying to identify the key ingredients in the efficient interventions, think about the large-scale implementation and the public policies around these questions. And I didn't speak about that during the presentation, but just as ideas for perspectives. For now, I've worked only with typically developing children, but I know that some of you are working with children with special educational needs, and I think that it could be super interesting to bring this to the topic of metacognition and this metacognitive development and metacognition interventions, working with other populations, and particularly children with special education needs. And I'm also pretty interested in working more on the insights, what can neuroscience bring to educational science, and maybe bring them together to work on the neuroeducation of metacognition. I know that some work already exists with, for example, executive function, but I have the feeling that there is not many research regarding metacognition, and I think that it could be super interesting. So thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to hear your feedback if you have any comments or questions.
Oh my goodness, Melanie, that was fantastic. And first of all, I have to say you have done a gargantuan amount of work during your PhD. Like, another round of applause just for the sheer amount and the quality of work that you've done. I'm so impressed. I think that's fantastic. So I will kick off and give everybody else the time to get their thoughts together. I've got quite a lot of questions I could ask. Like, my jotting has just got longer and longer and longer as we've gone along. But I think I'll start with a topic that I'm kind of interested in this whole interventions kind of space. So this idea of metacognitive knowledge and kind of teaching metacognitive knowledge versus kind of metacognitive skills. Now, I know that in general, metacognition interventions as a whole have demonstrated positive effects, but I have seen examples where they kind of really drill down on like the neuroeducation, the teaching about the brain and how that works, and they don't seem to find such positive effects sometimes. So I kind of liken it to, you know, if you learn what the parts of a car are, that doesn't necessarily make you a better driver. So I just wanted to know, like, what was your kind of approach to this issue, and how did you kind of integrate learning about the brain into your intervention?
Yeah. Actually, you're right in the sense that most of the meta-analysis existing on this question has actually focused on metacognition intervention targeting metacognitive skills. And for now, I have the feeling that the most strong evidence that we have in the literature are linked to metacognitive skills, the teaching of metacognitive skills. With different parts and contribution of metacognitive knowledge, but I join you in with the fact that in interventions only focusing on metacognitive knowledge, it's specifically this question of knowledge about the brain or the cognitive the cognition in general, with the idea behind that if you know more about your brain, you can enhance also the agentivity in your learning. Actually, we don't have very good results of this type of intervention. So this is why, for me, it's super important to combine the two components. Actually, to work on metacognitive skills, but not forgetting also to provide knowledge about this also metacognitive skills and knowledge about individuals, because it can help the development and the use of metacognitive skills. So actually, you can I imagine that a pupil can use better evaluation skills and reflect better on how they can improve if they know their strengths and limitations as learners, for example. But I join you in the fact that if we focus only on metacognitive knowledge, I'm not sure that it will be the best way to improve metacognitive abilities and to see transfer to academic achievement and academic performance, actually.
Thank you. That definitely agrees with what I've seen in the literature, so I'm pleased to hear that. So we have got a couple of questions come in from the audience. So Helen says, amazing, thank you so much. Can you say what assessment tools or questionnaires you used to get info about the metacognitive skills of the children?
So for the metacognitive skills, it was this, I can just find just a second to find the slide. It was this teacher questionnaire. Where is it? Here. So this one, designed by Whitebread and colleagues, actually it's a questionnaire assessing more broadly independent learning and self-regulated learning. And then I focused on items specifically on metacognition, but actually there are only 9 items. And this is why I decided for the last project that we conducted with the teacher training to try to create a new questionnaire by enhancing the number of items specifically related to metacognition, with more items on metacognitive planning, monitoring, evaluation, and metacognitive knowledge. But for now, to my knowledge, this is the tool that it's mainly used in the field. This is one of the only validated questionnaire that we have in the literature. And actually it was for me a really pivotal article in the literature, because initially it was impossible for some researchers to think that metacognition could develop as early as even like before age 8, because if we place also in Piagetian perspective, reflexivity, and formal thinking is not possible before 12 years old. So actually it took time to can consider that some reflexivity clues can also be observed in young children. But on the other end, we didn't have any tools to measure metacognitive abilities in younger children. So without tool, it was impossible to change the theory, and with this theory, it was impossible to think that it could be interesting to create tools adapted for young children. So actually, I have the feeling that this paper from Whitebird was really a pivotal article in the literature, providing both tools to assess metacognition, so providing in the question of methodological considerations, and with these methodological considerations, trying to change the theory that we had about the developmental trajectory of metacognition.
It's actually a really, really interesting and important point, because it must be really hard to measure these kinds of skills in children this young. And it kind of links to another question that I jotted down, which was the kind of metacognition effect as strong as you had expected at this age? Because obviously, as you get to age 8 and age 12, as you say, children may have picked these skills up from elsewhere, they may have developed them through school or teachers. But at that early age, you would imagine the SES effect would be quite strong, because obviously higher SES parents have the time and the resources to be really engaged with their children's learning and help them think about their learning, etc. Was like the effect as strong as you'd expected, or not as strong in your findings?
Yeah, actually pretty strong. And what we saw in the literature for now is that the effect seems to be stronger with younger children and decrease over the time. But we have to take maybe, I don't know. No, I don't think that I have this result here. Because actually it's also the case regarding the relation between metacognition and academic achievements. So for both, we found stronger effects with younger children, but we still need to take these results with caution regarding the little number of articles which are included to this meta-analysis and to these results. But theoretically, we can imagine that effectively there is a strong impact as in the younger ages, considering the importance of the family environment and the family contribution at that age, and in the schooling. So actually we were surprised of the effect size, because we didn't want to say to observe such a big effect on of SES, because it's depressing to see the effect of these educational inequalities. But actually, when comparing to the results of the literature, it was not so surprising to see and to observe this effect size.
I understand your feeling, especially since it's quite difficult to make change in home environments, and difficult.
Actually, it was my feeling when I saw the socioeconomic gradient in the project targeting parents, to see this gradient, because I was wow, it's a beautiful gradient. Like it's quite perfect between low SES, median low SES, median high, and high SES. But actually, it means that we need to tackle huge educational inequalities.
Yeah, a real problem, absolutely. So coming to Simon's question. So Simon says that was really interesting and very practical. Simon says, I am interested to know how SES was measured, and if Melanie has thoughts on how SES is mediating differences in metacognition.
Yeah, so for the assessment of socioeconomic status, we used to collect the last degree obtained by the both parents, that then we convert into years of education. So between basically 0 for no degree to 20 for a doctorate, and we also collect data on their occupation. we then code this occupation with the ISCO 8 classification, which is the International Classification of Occupations. And then these categorical codes are converted into ISE values for the International Socioeconomic Index, I think, which ranges the occupation basically between 10 and 80 for the low qualified occupations and highly qualified occupations, and with an intermediate for at 50. We then applied what we call the dominance criteria. So we select the highest level of education and level of occupation between both parents, and then we combine then running a principal component analysis. And this is a very similar method used by the OECD in their PISA surveys. Actually, I follow quite this method. Just I don't add information about the income because it's too difficult in France to ask this type of question of to parents. And also there in the OECD method, they add possessions, household possessions information, but actually I can run the principal component analysis with only the parental and occupational status, which is actually a pretty rich measure of socioeconomic status, including both cultural capital and financial capital. And I can't remember the next part of the question.
It was just about how SCS, so I'm guessing kind of the mechanism, so how is it mediating differences in metacognition?
Yeah, about the mechanisms. So we were particularly interested in the parental practices because there are already works on the literature and models proposed to try to explain these mechanisms. Parental practices are in of these elements. The metacognitive talk of parents, so how much parents use metacognitive talk with their child, but also things like scaffoldings and giving the opportunity to children to have cognitively challenging activities, give them autonomy. I think about a paper from Pino Pasternak and Whitebird, published in 2010, I think, and reviewing this literature and proposing a model of the different practices, parents' practices related to metacognition, and we can easily imagine how these parental practices can be socially biased, like families and parents from high SES use much more metacognitive talk and metacognitive question to their children to raise their reflexivity than on average families from low SES backgrounds. So this is the path, the avenues that we were going to, but definitely we need more work to explore this question of the exact mechanisms explaining this relation between SES and metacognition, and also to design more efficient interventions, because these mechanisms could constitute a promising target and ingredients to target in our interventions if we want to work on this relation.
Yes, absolutely, totally agree. And I'm not sure. Yes, we are just out of time, but I do want to ask you one more question because it sort of jumps off of that. Daniela is saying she will email you about her thoughts on your project. Thank you everyone for coming. So my final question, jumping off what you were just saying about this idea of interventions, obviously you have now done 3 interventions. You've targeted children, you've targeted the parents, you've targeted the teachers. Bearing in mind you don't have all your results yet, on kind of a practical sense, what do you think was kind of the best? What was maybe the easiest, the most practical, or maybe like should a combination of interventions be used in the future?
I would love to combine them, and I think that is the logical perspective after all this project. But I don't know if I want to jump one more time into another intervention. But definitely, it could be really interesting to try to combine them. From my perspective, I think that the most promising is the teacher training, actually. Uh,
Really interesting, yeah.
Considering both the effects, the potential effect that it can have, and the logistical aspect. I think that actually the two main promising is the question of the interventions targeting parents and teachers, just because it allows to foster metacognition on a daily basis with the main educators of children. So I have the feeling that it could be more relevant than just one sequence of 7 hours in the year. But the main issue with parent intervention is the cost. And we see that with video intervention, it's super hard to speak to parents and to get access to them, and to target maybe the families and the parents who would actually benefit the most from the intervention, that we fail to get into the program. And I think that it's easier with teachers that as professionals are already aware of the importance, or that can train and make them aware of the importance of these elements. They also spend a lot of time with children in a day. Actually, and in terms of logistical aspects, I think that a training of, for example, in this project, 18 hours can be much more efficient than sending 12 videos to parents by text message. So but maybe I'm also biased because I'm a developmental psychologist and educational psychologist, so I used to think about school and teachers. But actually, one of my co-supervisor, Carlo Baron, is a sociologist of education, and he's much more into parent intervention, considering that socioeconomic status, socioeconomic inequalities come from the families.
Yeah.
And it's also like maybe a philosophical question to say that is it the role of school to reduce educational inequalities or not? And this is a super interesting debate to have also with sociologists. But as a developmental and educational psychologist, I think that I will go with teachers training.
Oh, it's such a hard dilemma. The home is so important, but really hard to access. The school is also important. It's easier to access. Yeah, it's a case of where do you put your resources, isn't it? Well, thank you so much, Melanie. I think that is a brilliant note to finish on. And thank you so much again to everyone for coming. Hope you really enjoyed it. Melanie, where can people find you? Maybe you could pop your email address in the chat before we...
Yeah. Was that the last slide?
Oh, it's on your slide. Brilliant.
Yeah, this one.
Oh, brilliant. There we are. Well, thank you so much again, Melanie, and good luck with the
Thank
rest of your
you.
project. And thank you so much, everyone, for coming. And next week, we have a very exciting talk by Lorna Quant, who is talking about sign language and learning in virtual reality. So that will be excellent and very technological. Thank you, everyone. See you again.
Thank you.